Good morning, afternoon, and evening, and night, everybody. My name is Garrett, and I am doing a video for my history class, and I'm using this book, The American Pageant, to talk about it. And the goal of this video is to provide a reflection of what I thought about the first unit, which is chapters 1 through 8. Now, what I took away from this is that a lot of people have different points of view on stuff. Like the British, the French, the colonists, and the Native Americans all had different points of view on what was going on in the colonies. So, for the colonists, it's very simple. They're used to having all these rights. They've been left alone for 100 years, and they've been smuggling. Like, there's nothing wrong with smuggling. It's just a normal thing you do. It's not very enforced. Get better profit that way. They've been having their own congresses and such. And then the French and Indian War happens, and that's kind of the major turning point. The French get driven out of England, out of the colonies. The British get control over a lot of North America, and then they start to crack down on taxes and such for the colonists because they need money. The British need money because they spent a lot on war. And the Native Americans have free reign, pretty much. So this all kind of sparks a little revolution, if you will. So for the British, it's very simple. The British want money. They need money. And since all of Britain is currently paying a stamp tax that is 3 times the one that they put on the colonies, they decide to put a stamp tax on the colonies. Now the colonists are rather upset about this because they didn't get to have any say in whether or not they got it. So they're a little bit upset about that. So they think the British are being unfair. It's not really unfair, it's just that they're used to having some form of representation in their colonies. The British also did the Quartering Act to help protect the colonies, but there wasn't really any need for protection at that point of time. So the colonists were very upset about this because it gave the British soldiers the right to just come into any private home and stay the night and get food and drink. And a lot of the times the soldiers were pretty rowdy. And then the Declaratory Act that the British gave said that the colonists were fully under their control, and they controlled it. So to the British, this is all very fair. Very fair. The Britons have to do this themselves. It's all fair. For the colonists, this is very unfair. Sugar Act, unfair. No taxation without representation becomes a rallying cry. The Navigation Acts, which prevent smuggling, start to become enforced. And this upsets all the colonists because they were getting cheap goods at good prices from smugglers, and they weren't very enforced. And they want to start to trade with other countries besides just Britain. And then the Intolerable Acts also just added fuel to the fire and made everybody in the colonies stirred up and kind of upset that they were getting taxed without being represented in Congress. So taxation without representation became a rallying cry in the colonies. Now the Native Americans were pretty happy with how things were going, despite the fact that their ancestral lands had been taken from them by the British and colonists, so they were still upset about that a little bit. But the British had issued the Proclamation of 1763, which allowed them all the land past the Appalachians. Now this was great. British were far away. The only issue were some colonists killing natives on the borders, which could be dealt with. So for the Native Americans, life was looking pretty good. They liked this Proclamation of 1763. They liked the British again. Now the colonists were very upset about this. They were about to expand westward. They wanted more land. There were indentured servants that were freed and then couldn't get any land because all the rich people had taken it. So they were very upset, and they wanted to repeal it. So that's another little spark that added to the revolutionary fire. And then the French also had a viewpoint on this. They had just lost the French and Indian War, and they were pretty upset about that. So they were looking for a way to get back at Britain for ousting them out of the North American colonies. So the perfect opportunity would come later to assist America in its quest for freedom from Britain. Now, the French and Indian War was won by William Pitt, who was a general in the British Army who targeted Quebec and Montreal, the capitals of the French colonies, and basically won the war in the Battle of Quebec. So the colonists, they like the fact that they've got a lot more land now. They're getting upset because the British are taxing them without representation. So their point of view is that the British are becoming more and more tyrannical and restricting on them. And they've been used to all this freedom lately. The British think that, okay, we're just going to crack down on the colonies, everything's going to be fine, this is how things should have been, we'll just fix it now. So nothing's wrong for Britain. The Native Americans are starting to get upset at the colonists because they're fighting on the borders, and they like the British. So that sets up them to ally with the British in the Revolutionary War. And then the French are upset at Britain, so that sets them up to ally with the Americans in the Revolutionary War. So that's my take on this whole unit. There are more things that lead up to the acts that I was talking about. But my point was that everybody has their different point of view, and differences in points of view can cause massive wars and change. Thank you.